this changes everything for the Red Sox. There's a huge quote that I'm going to share with you guys in a minute that I really think could be a huge part of the Red Sox offseason if what we're talking about here happens. So welcome back to Red Sox Digest, everyone. I'm Evan Sharrard. We're about to get into a huge possible move the Red Sox might make and a very right now quote, as we'll dive right into that quote. Let's take a look at it right now. This is a quote from Chris Cotillo of Mass Live, one of the reporters who covers the Red Sox here in Boston. And really what I'm getting from this quote, I'll leave it up so you guys can read this, but my goodness, this quote, this is something I wasn't even thinking was really even much of a thought. I think it was more about bringing back Tyler O'Neill. Does he come back this offseason? So for those who are not initiated, the Red Sox outfield this season at its best looked a lot like Tyler O'Neill out in left, Jarren Duran out in center, and in right field, Wilyer Abreu. And Tyler O'Neill's contract's just expired, but Abreu and Duran are under contract for a little bit longer. So let's kind of talk about this, because the mention here is Roman Anthony, and he's the big guy that I think we really need to talk about before we get into Abreu and Duran and the potential for this likely trade that Chris Cotillo's mentioning. So Roman Anthony has been a meteoric rise of an outfielder in the Boston Red Sox system, and he has gone from the third or fourth best Red Sox prospect before this season to jumping over Marcelo Mayer for the number one. And the thing about Roman Anthony that makes it challenging for the Red Sox big league roster is he's been so good this year that he's gone all the way from Double-A Portland to Triple-A Worcester to now the talks are all about him being in Major League Boston next season. So, with that in mind, that's an outfield spot. He's not going to DH because he's too good defensively. He's much faster than Masataka Yoshida. He's a power lefty. Remember, I think that's really key here is Roman Anthony is a lefty, and the Red Sox really need to bring in a power righty from the offensive side of things. So, well, we could also use a power righty pitcher, but we'll talk about that a little later. So, really, the Red Sox needs right now, Roman Anthony comes up, fills the outfield gap that Tyler O'Neill leaves if the Red Sox decide not to re-sign him. So we just made a video on the channel about Tyler O'Neill. If they decide to go against keeping him, that means that Roman Anthony naturally slides in. You keep Ceddanne Rafael in the infield, as he's been at shortstop. That's where he was listed pretty much most of the year. And then Marcelo Mayer's spot probably starts at second base, maybe third if you want to move Devers to DH, but then that opens up the talk about Masataka Yoshida. And I saw a comment on the last video saying, I would really like to see power from the DH spot from a righty. I really agree with that. I think that could be really beneficial. It just displaces Masataka Yoshida, and maybe you're talking about trading him. And to me, I know Masa has been exceptional contact-wise, and he's come through in the clutch. He was really good down the stretch this year. His age and the contract, also his liability defensively, and his lack of overall power, I think is expendable when you talk about the guys that are coming up. Granted, you want to see what Roman Anthony can do and what we have in the rest of these Red Sox prospects, but when we start to talk about the production of a hitter like Rafael Devers, and if he were to DH, I think that's a dramatic difference. I mean, Devers is the superstar of the Boston Red Sox right now. He moving to DH, his hitting potential skyrockets because he doesn't have to worry about playing the field, and he's pretty much just hitting, taking care of himself more. Injuries were a big thing with him this year, playing with a sustained shoulder injury pretty much the whole year. Those are huge things, huge differences that could really skyrocket the Red Sox offensive ability. And if Yoshida's the expendable one there, I'm not too upset. You keep Devers, you put him at DH, you have Mayer in the infield, but those are a whole lot of what ifs. So the Roman Anthony situation to me really screams, okay, let's look into this trade then, because I think that could be, well, let's get into it. So the trades that are possible for next season. The graphic that I showed on the screen from Chris Cotillo mentioned making a really difficult decision between Jarren Duran, All-Star Game MVP, breakout player of the year for the Red Sox, and Wilyer Abreu, another rookie phenom who showcased power, contact ability, and fantastic defensive metrics, and just passed the eye test defensively. He was amazing. So let's just kind of look at, there's Brayan Bello. I don't know why he's here, but let's take a look at the contracts here. So this is the contract situation right now with Wilyer Abreu. He's pre-arbitration. And so for those who are uninitiated, unfamiliar with the baseball free agency contract lingo, what pre-arbitration means is the Red Sox are still able to renew his contract at a low rate. So $749,000 for me and the rest of the world is a lot of money for a contract. I'm taking that any day of the week to do anything. But in Major League Baseball, that's not a whole lot. So Wilyer Abreu is making that much money this season, and he's pre-arbitration, so he can work with the Red Sox. They'll pretty much hand him a contract, and he has to sign it. That's pretty much what happens. It's pretty close to that. Once he reaches arbitration, then he can say, you know what, I think I'm worth more. We're taking this to arbitration. A neutral third-party arbiter comes in, decides with either side which case is better, and that's the way they go. So Abreu would be entitled to likely more money if it were arbitration. But pre-arbitration means you've got around 5 to, depending on what happens, even 7 years of control. So Wilyer Abreu, especially after the season he just had, would, I think, demand a lot from a team. He's a top-level young player. Granted, he's 25, a little older than I think a lot of teams would like a prospect to be. But Abreu showcased that he might just be a really, really good player. He might have 30 home run power, 280 average, elite defensive ability. He's not the fastest, but this is Wilyer Abreu's contract situation. Really, really good for the Red Sox. And now, let's take a look at Jarren Duran's. This is Jarren Duran's. He is estimated, because this is his first year of arbitration, to make around, they don't know. Right now, he's going to be, I guess the annual payroll, I think 4.1 million might be the expected. He's just had 1 year where he was this good. So the Red Sox can do this for 3 more years after this before he's an unrestricted free agent at the age of 32. Because of how late Jarren Duran has come on as a top player on the Red Sox, the Red Sox, I think, are in the driver's seat to really keep Jarren for a low price for pretty much till his early 30s here. Once he's an unrestricted free agent, if he only gets better, then he could just be in the prime of his career, where he can go and demand a 5-year, $100 million contract, and he can make himself a very, very rich man. But I can see now why the Red Sox might be like, okay, we got a bunch of young guys coming in, another lefty. We're going to be so lefty heavy. We need right-handed power. Maybe they do decide to trade Jarren Duran. Out of these two guys, based on value, Jarren, I think, is going to demand more. Now, the off-the-field stuff, and literally on the field, the whole incident that he had behind home plate with a fan this season, saying a slur, that might take away from his trade value. And that's a really serious subject. I understand that. And I think that is something that the Red Sox have definitely talked to him about. But Jarren Duran, the player, is phenomenal. His defensive metrics completely skyrocketed. Let's take a look at that really quickly. These are his, as you can see. We got the running sprint speed is in the 96th percentile. The way these baseball savant stats work is anything in red is good, blue is bad, anything in between is okay to average. A lot of red on this chart, a little bit of grayish blue. He didn't square the ball up a lot, but pretty much everything here for Jarren Duran is really good. The expected batting average is in that 89th percentile. The slugging, 78. Really good offensive player. Really good fielder. Really great runner. Jarren Duran is a 5-tool player. The power, I don't think, is quite there with the rest of the league, but this guy could be a 40, 50, 60 double guy if he really heats up and starts using those gaps. Jarren Duran is a top player in baseball after last season, and if he continues this and gets even better, you're talking about one of the best outfielders in all of baseball. Heck, the guy was the All-Star Game MVP. So that's Jarren. Statistically, I think his trade value's got to be pretty high right now. But the one thing is, this is one really good season. Can he keep it up? I think if he has a really strong start to the season, his trade value would be even higher, and maybe you're talking about getting a really good return. But since we're talking about this trade, and since we're talking about Jarren, all right, maybe you're talking about his value being really good. Maybe that's the guy you want to hold on to. Maybe you want to get rid of the player we have brought up right here, which is Wilyer Abreu. And the thing that stands out to me is Abreu is not that fast, but he's an exceptional defender. You see his arm strength is in the 98th percentile. His range is in the 91st, and his arm value is in the 95th. So I want to really focus on the range and the arm strength. 91st percentile in range for a guy who's not that fast? That's amazing. Now, his expected batting average, when we look at him offensively, is really low. 18th percentile. He's squaring up not many baseballs. His bat speed's great, and he hits the ball harder than almost anybody in the major leagues. So this guy has a little bit of growth to do offensively to really reach that, I think, 30 home runs, like 280 potential, especially with that expected batting average being so low. Lower than I really assumed it would be. But these are two really good players that I think that Sox fans, and I wasn't thinking that either of these guys would even be in trade talks this offseason, just because it seemed like these are guys that are going to be the core of the future. But with so many really good prospects around the corner, I think it makes sense that Chris Cotillo's saying this. So let's kind of talk about the possible trades here. I mean, there are a few guys that I have in mind. These are the basic stats for Duran and Abreu. Both of them had above average OPS pluses, which, if you guys are familiar with some of the videos that I've made, these stats really just go a long way for me. Anything above 100 is above average. Anything below it is below. They're both above average, and I think that's really strong. But the Red Sox need to bring in starting pitching. They really need to get better in that facet because they've had to for a while. It was fantastic at the beginning of the season, but at the end of the season, it really dropped off. They need help. They need an ace. And this is one of the free agents that is going to be coming up. Nathan Eovaldi, who Red Sox fans who have been around for at least more than a couple years remember Nathan Eovaldi as one of the best Red Sox pitchers in the World Series run in 2018 with, for my money, the best pitching performance in playoff relief history, only losing to a walk-off home run to Max Muncy. Red Sox would seal it up after that in Game 5. But Nathan Eovaldi's coming on the expiring contract here in Texas after winning the World Series last year. Eovaldi could come back to Boston, be the 2 or the 3, even the 1, depending on how good he is in camp, and really fill in, I think, for less money. I think the Red Sox would get a discount on him, and then he could retire a Red Sox over the next few seasons. Nathan Eovaldi hasn't shown me a reason to think that he's dropping off. He's been a late riser in his career as a good pitcher, and I think he could be a cheaper option for the Red Sox to really improve the staff after. I really don't think they should have let him go. And now here's the big ticket, Corbin Burnes. Corbin Burnes is not even 30 yet, and he'll be 30 next season, but Corbin Burnes was a Cy Young winner in Milwaukee. And they let him go, and Baltimore got him, and I don't think he was quite as good as they'd hoped he would be this entire year, but he was still phenomenal with a 2.92 ERA and 181 strikeouts. Corbin Burnes brings an electric cutter and electric off-speed variety, whether it's his slider or the curve. Corbin Burnes is really good, and I think that he's on a level that the Red Sox just don't have right now and haven't had since Sale was at his best. And even though Tanner Houck was really strong at the start of the year, they're missing that. And so I want to wrap this video up just by looking at some of the other free agents that'll be in this class and recommending one more. And another one I really like is Shane Bieber. We've got the older guys up here. Now, this does include opt-outs. It's really hard to see, but all those blues that you see on the side of your screen there under type all the way to the right, those are the guys who are unrestricted free agents, meaning they will hit free agency before they extend a deal unless they make a deal with the team, but that would require a lot of money. I really like the idea of bringing in Shane Bieber because He too is just under 30, a former Cy Young winner. I think he had a down year last year, and a down year for him is a 3.8 ERA, which is, to me, really strong. Because if you look, his stats after 2018 are sensational. 3.28, 1.63. You see a lot of bolded numbers here, and bolded numbers equal league leader. He is not too far away from being a top pitcher. I think the Red Sox could get a better price on him. Granted, there are a lot of unrestricted free agent pitching, but Shane Bieber's one that I like a lot more just because of his track record. He has been really good, and he's shown that he can be at that top level as a pitcher. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Evan Sharrard. I hope that the Red Sox hold on to their outfield and make an assessment rather than this offseason, unless they can get a blockbuster ace pitcher in a trade that they have control over. I think the best course of action would be to hold these guys until earlier in the season next year when we can really figure out, are these young guys ready? Because the worst thing that could happen is Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer come up, they both flop at the big league level next year, and they need another year or two. And then you're left without an outfield for a team that just came out and said, we really want to make it back to the playoffs. So those are my thoughts. I'm Evan Sharrard. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe for all the latest information on the Red Sox news, rumors, and all. And so long. Have a wonderful day.